Hello, web programming students. We're going to talk about version control, GitHub, and GitHub pages. For your Project 1 site, you're required to upload your websites to GitHub pages. So if you've never seen this before, this will be an introduction on how to use GitHub pages to host a website. And for some of you, this might be familiar, and for a few of you, it should be familiar. But either way, it's important to brush up on these skills. I'm going to let Pastorite take over, and then I'll come back later.
So let's talk about version control in GitHub. So version control is how many people can collaborate on a piece of code, like some HTML or JavaScript or any kind of coding language. Trunk and branches is the key concept to remember when we talk about version control. Say I write some code that has parts A, B, and C. Someone can come along and fork that code. So maybe the person forks the code at part A and writes some new code that fixes a problem in part A or improves it. That person made a branch of the original code, which anyone can use too. So that person can also make a pull request of the original code writer. That's me. So what is that? I can decide to approve and pull that code from the branch into the master, make a permanent part of it, or not. And this is where a process of comparing the branch code and the master code happens to show what's exactly being changed. So using version control, if you have to go back to an old version of A, part A, or part B, or part C, then you can do this. And how do you keep track of all these versions of the different branches and the master? Using something called Git. Git and GitHub, what is it? So Git is the industry standard system for version control for code and data, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a code manager. So GitHub is a user-friendly client application and website for Git. It used to be a startup, but then it got acquired by Microsoft. So now GitHub is a Microsoft product. Other clients for this kind of version control are GitLab and Bitbucket. But GitHub is the big dog or big cat among web developers. So though Bitbucket is getting bigger, GitHub is free, while Bitbucket has a little bit limited free option and paid tiers. So my advice to you is to learn GitHub. If you're going to be doing more web development in your life, just sign up. It's free, and take a look around. Oftentimes, if there's a piece of code that you need for your website, there's probably some on GitHub already. With GitHub pages, you can make a website if you have a GitHub account. So I'm going to step through the process of signing up for GitHub and GitHub pages, even though I already have a GitHub account. So some terms to know before we go into GitHub. One is repository, or also known as repo. This is like a project folder. It can include subfolders, include files, images, video, whatever you need for a project. It all goes into the repo. A commit in the GitHub world is a saved change. So if you change a file, you change a folder, when you click save, that means it's committed. And keeping track of when and where commits happen is a huge part of version control. In the GitHub world, to clone means to download a copy of the source code. So example, you can clone a repository, which creates a new copy of the whole repo, and then all the files inside of it get copied too, and then download it to your local machine. So now let's sign up for GitHub and GitHub pages. So I already have a GitHub account, so that's what's showing up here. When you sign into GitHub, you can see what other people you follow have been doing on GitHub. Here's a list of my repos here. And then I'm going to sign out and start a new account of GitHub. So I'm just going to do a dummy account. Two. Email, I'll use my Now it asked me to create an account, verify it, so solve this puzzle so I know you're a real person. Pick the spiral galaxy. Okay, this is the spiral galaxy. I'll join the free plan here. Welcome to GitHub. Woohoo. All right, so they're taking a survey. What kind of work do I do mainly? I am mainly a teacher. Let's click that. Doesn't really matter. They'll serve you up different information. Let's just pretend I'm a UX and design person. How much programming experience do I have? Let's just say none. Maybe I'll say little. Doesn't necessarily matter. What do I plan to use GitHub for? Learn to code, sure. Host a project, sure. Create a website with GitHub pages, yes. So let's click that. Click complete setup and you're done. So all of this, I think, won't necessarily matter. You can pick whatever you like and then click complete setup. So I need to verify my email address. I'm going to run into my email real quick and do that. Now that I verify my email address, now I've got this page here. What do I want to do first? Start a new project, collaborate with your team, learn how to use GitHub. So feel free to go through any of these options, but we're going to skip this for now so that we can go to GitHub pages and start to use GitHub pages to create a website on the web. Skip this for now. And then eventually we'll create a repository, but we'll pause on that and come back to it. If you'd like, you can go to the read guide, the guide for GitHub, start a project. You can look around. But for now, we're going to just go to GitHub pages. So pages.github.com is where we want to go. So here we are at pages.github.com, where we'll upload our website to. Hosted directly from your GitHub repository. So we'll go through the steps here and just walk through to do that. You can go and watch this GitHub pages video later, but it's a good introduction. So next it says, ready to get started, build your own site from scratch or generate one for your project. You get one site per GitHub account and organization and unlimited project sites. Let's get started. So you can select user or organization site or project site. I will do user or organization site. And then your first step is to create a repository. So we're going to go back to GitHub, create a new repository named username.github.io, where username is your username, of course, on GitHub. So you make sure it's exactly right. So if the first part of the repository doesn't exactly match a username, it won't work. So make sure to get it right. So you can see here that the username that I made, so mine was rightsnearest2, and you have to put rightsnearest2.github.io. So you're going to put your username in this spot here. So let's go back to GitHub. Let's go here. Create repository. So we create repository. It said to use your username. Oops. .github.io. You can add a description if you like. So I'll call this example website. Then it asks to initialize this repository with add a README file. You should do that. So let's click that. Add.gitignore. We'll skip that for a second. Choose a license. We'll skip that for now. So we'll create this repository. And so here's our repository. And here's the README, which is something called readme.md. MD stands for Markdown, which is a text language here that we add stuff here. So right now, this is fine here. I'm not going to change this, but you could add more information here for someone who's coming to this site and would like to know more about your repository here. So now this is done here. Let's go back to the GitHub pages instructions. So we've created a repository. Our next step is to answer this question. What Git client are you using? So unless you're savvy with the C terminal, you're probably going to wind up using GitHub Desktop. But for now, let's click I don't know. And so if you click I don't know, it'll prompt you to download GitHub Desktop. So GitHub Desktop is a great way to use Git and GitHub on Mac OS and Windows. So we use Mac OS or Windows. So we're going to download the GitHub Desktop here. So we click download GitHub Desktop, and then it kicks us over to desktop.github.com. We'll click download for Mac OS. So when that downloads, we'll open that up. Have it install on my computer. Here it is. Just click on it to start. Yes, I want to open this from the internet. Welcome to GitHub Desktop. So we should sign in to github.com. And then since it's already open on my browser here, I'll authorize desktop. And then open GitHub Desktop, configure Git. This is used to identify the commits you create. Remember, a commit is a saved change. Anyone will be able to see this information if you publish commits. That's fine. So my username is here. The email address is a special GitHub one. Just leave that the way it is. Click continue. Make GitHub Desktop better. CS submit periodic usage stats, sure. So now it says get started. Remember in our GitHub pages directions, wake up. We're using GitHub Desktop, and it says to clone the repository. So we will go back to our GitHub Desktop. Clone a repository from the internet. That's what we want. We only have one repository, so let's click this one. Click clone, and it'll download it to our local. So now we have local here, current repository, no local changes, that's okay. Now we'll back to the instructions here. Our next set of instructions is to create an index file. So we already have one, so we'll add it to the project. So we do that, go to GitHub Desktop. So now that we're in GitHub Desktop, there's no local changes. There are no uncommitted changes in this repository. Here's some friendly suggestions of what to do next. So what we can do is, since we already have our code written, we can skip the open and atom part and go right to the second one. Here it says view the files of your repository in Finder. Show in Finder. And so here's our folder that's of our local repository.
Hello again, I'm back. At this point, we're going to use our demo from last week as an example. So let me share my screen. And then we need our code from our demo from last week. That's here. So from last week, we have a CSS file which has nothing in it, IMG, which has our pizza JPEG file in it, and index. So what we're going to do is copy all of these files, and then we're going to paste them into our repository folder over here on Finder. So copy and paste, and then they should show up in Finder here, and they should also show up in our GitHub Desktop. So once we've done that, we have to enter a summary. So here we'll say we'll upload web pages, and then you can add a description if you like. It's a good idea to do that, to give yourself a note to say what you did. So upload demo and index and pizza. So once we're done these summaries here and this description here, you click commit to main. Now we're almost done. Once we've committed to the main, next we need to do is push these commits. Remember, commit is a save change. So you save the changes and then you push them out to the web. So you want to click this button, push origin. Now you'll see here, it'll start to turn, and then depending on how many files you have, it'll take a few seconds or a few minutes or what have you. And then once that's done, we can go to our browser. Type in, right nearest to, in my case, .github.io. And now we have our pizza picture and our web page. And if we want to look at the demo page that we did, we can do a slash here, demo HTML, and that should have our demo page that we also worked on last week. So that's how you upload pages to GitHub pages.